Glad everybody enjoyed the lunch. There's obviously a lot of chatter going on here, but the show's got to go on, and we're very pleased to welcome back Gary Kelly to speak here at the Wings Club Foundation. As I'm sure you're all aware, Gary is the chairman of the board and CEO of Southwest Airlines. Obviously, Southwest has an extraordinary record of both customer satisfaction and financial success. It was the highest-ranked low-cost carrier in the J.D. Power Customer Satisfaction Study in both 2017 and 2018, and has recorded 46 continuous years of profitability, a record unmatched in the aviation industry. So well done, Southwest. Gary has also received many personal recognitions. He is a Junior Achievement Dallas Business Hall of Fame laureate inductee, an inductee into the Texas Business Hall of Fame, and a recipient of the prestigious Tony Janus Award. And in 2017, it was our honor to recognize Gary with the Wings Club Distinguished Achievement Award. Please join me in welcoming Gary Kelly. And as I mentioned before lunch, we're very pleased to have Lee Cullum with us. Lee is a Dallas-based journalist. She serves as the editor of the editorial page of the Dallas Times-Herald and hosts the CEO interview series on PBS. Lee has a strong interest in foreign policy and has served on the board of the Council on Foreign Relations. She is also a senior fellow of the John G. Tower Center for Political Studies. Welcome, Lee. Please join me on stage. The floor is all yours.
Great to be with you.
Great to be with you. And David, thank you so much. And it's very good to be with Gary Kelly again. He has been on my television program twice. Once was about 10 years ago when Southwest was pretty much a regional airline fighting to get rid of the Wright Amendment, which constrained him in Texas and surrounding states. 10 years later, the largest airline in the country, but you're still the same nice Gary Kelly, and Southwest is still the same great airline. You know, I also did a program with him last April, and I keep thinking he'll invite me to ride in his red Porsche. He hasn't. I don't know why. Or at the very least, we can hear him play the electric guitar. That hasn't happened. And David, you might want to consider that for next year when he returns, because he's very good.
Nobody would come. So.
Oh, no, I'd come. But Gary, you have good news today. You reached a settlement last night with Boeing with regard to the MAX, and you're declaring revenue sharing, stock sharing for your employees.
We do.
Your associates, that's great.
And Lee, it's great to be with you, and thank you for coming up to do this. And this is one sharp lady, let me tell you. So
thank you.
I've got my seatbelt buckled.
Good.
But you know, this is a fun time of year. It's always great to be here at the Wings Club. You all do a terrific job. I want to thank all my Southwest colleagues and friends for being here today. But it really is, it's a celebratory mood and time, and there's always things that are challenges, but there's always lots to celebrate. And that's the way I really think about this year for Southwest. Our people have done an extraordinary job and produced a great product. Our customers are very happy, and you know, we're obviously pleased that we were able to reach a deal with Boeing, and it gave us the means to be able to keep our employees' profit sharing whole, if you will, for the year. So yeah, that's a big deal, and our employees definitely have earned it. So again, just a lot to celebrate, and certainly a real tribute to them.
Well, now, as of September, I think you had lost about $425 million. Is that right? Because of all these difficulties. Is that about what you're receiving in the settlement?
Well, the estimate that we have for the full year, which is what our agreement covers with Boeing, is $830 million. So it's escalated since the third quarter. That is the amount that the board calculated the profit sharing on. So it's our calculation of the loss. What we settled on with Boeing is separate and it's confidential for a lot of reasons. Boeing wasn't obligated to do that under our contract. but again, that will keep private. So that the profit sharing amount was based on the lost earnings again, the board decided to go ahead and award to our employees.
But this means there'll be no lawsuit, at least from you.
Well, correct.
Okay.
Correct. I mean, we're very admiring of the Boeing company, and they've taken great care of Southwest Airlines for 50 years. We're an all Boeing company, and we will be a Boeing customer for decades to come, regardless of what happens. So, again, as I said, we're not happy with the situation. Who can be? But at the same time, we're pleased that we've been able to reach a settlement.
Well, it was not a great day yesterday at the House Transportation Committee. As you know, David Gellis and Natalie Kitroff reported today that a man named Ed Pearson testified. He used to be a manager at the Renton, Washington plant where the MAX was built. And he said he had alerted the company to all kinds of problems, fatigued employees and missing tools and damaged parts and so forth. And he felt that the whole run should be canceled. And of course, Boeing itself has said if the FAA doesn't get on the stick and certify us, we might cancel it. What would that mean to you? Nobody anticipates that, but what would it mean?
Well, I think it's really two different things, of course. One is, Boeing is dealing with having the MAX grounded and not being able to deliver airplanes and trying to determine how many airplanes to produce in this interim period. So that's one thing. The other testimony from yesterday was talking about production concerns. I can't speak to the production concerns. What I can speak to is our experience with the airplane. We have been very pleased with the MAX 8. We think it is the best 175-seat narrow-body airplane in the world, and have close to 80,000 hours of flight experience with that airplane, and it performed flawlessly. So there's certainly no evidence to us of any issues in terms of manufacturing with our airplanes. With respect to what Boeing does with the production line now, yes, that we would be concerned about that, because obviously once the FAA issues the airworthiness directive to unground the airplane, we'll want to get to work restoring those airplanes to service. And roughly at this point with our contract, we would have had 75 airplanes in our possession. So
that's 34 you were flying.
34
and
that
you
we
ordered 40
were
more.
delivered.
And you ordered 40
and
more.
we would have had 41 more, let's say, that would have been produced and delivered by this time. If my memory is correct, by the end of next year, it would escalate to 115. So the point being that we're behind in our expansion. We would love to get started in restoring those airplanes to service. We'd rather not get further behind by having the production line shut down. I don't know whether we'll in fact have 115 airplanes, MAX airplanes flying by the end of next year, but based on what I know right now, that would certainly be my goal for next year. So yeah, I hope that they keep the shop open, so to speak.
Well, the critics keep popping up. There was someone named Jim Marco at Transport Canada. He wrote to the FAA and to regulators in Europe and Brazil and said, don't put the MCAS on the MAX. This is the software that misunderstood the sensor, or the sensor wasn't functioning correctly and therefore sent the tail down into the sea and into the earth. What do you think? He said it could be done without the MCAS. He doesn't like the fix, which is putting on a second sensor, apparently. What would you feel, what would you think if you were delivered MAXes without the MCAS?
Based on everything that we know, we're very satisfied with the changes that Boeing has made to the software that affects the MCAS system. We've had, I think very materially, Boeing has delivered the software. It's in the certification process with the FAA. And during that process, they include pilots from airlines from around the world, including Southwest. As the world's leading 737 operator, you would expect that. And their experience in the simulator with the software changes was superb. And I haven't heard of any issues. So after the first event with Lion Air, it was agreed then that modifications would be made They followed through with those, and we're satisfied with that. It's a great airplane, and we hire very experienced pilots in the first place at Southwest. On average, they have about 6,000 hours of experience, and then they go through extensive training to fly for Southwest Airlines, and I feel like our pilots are not only very well prepared, but they are very confident of their skills and of that airplane.
Well, one pilot you hired was from Boeing. He was a man named Mark Fortner. And at one point, he sent out an email. He had been on the simulator working with the MCAS. He said it's running rampant. But then he changed his mind and told the FAA it was not necessary to put it into the pilot's manual. Then he changed his mind again and sent out an email saying, I'm afraid I lied inadvertently, unwittingly to the FAA. How did he come to work for you?
That all came to light after we hired him.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be a little funny, so lighten up. Lighten up, everybody. But
laugh a minute, he always was.
it is, you know, I do think it illustrates the wisdom or the folly with what you put in emails, because under a spotlight, they don't look so good. And obviously, none of that looks good in hindsight. But he went through the normal training process for Southwest or normal hiring process, rather, for Southwest Airlines for a first officer, just like anybody else would. We knew him from our experience with Boeing as a customer. And you know, comes to, and by all accounts, has done a very fine job for us. So he is one of our technical pilots. He's not in charge of the MAX or not in charge of any of the programs per se. But all of that are things that just have to be worked out between him, Boeing, the FAA, and at least everything that I have read suggests that those comments were about the simulator and not the airplane.
Well, the simulator was running rampant.
The simulator was, he was, what is a fact for sure is he was in the simulator and was providing those comments. And it's not uncommon for us either to get a new simulator delivered. It'll have a few software bugs. It doesn't match the airplane exactly, and obviously it needs to. So none of that is extraordinary. But all that will have to get worked out. And in any event, we all know that there is an issue with MCAS. We all know that it needs to be addressed, and there's no disputing that. And at this point, we're confident that it is being addressed, and at least by the experience that our own pilots have had, it's more than adequately addressed.
Well, some are saying now that the FAA will approve this revision of the plane in January. By March, you'll begin training. You'll begin to get your planes off the ground into the air. Do you expect to live with that timetable? Do you think it'll work out that way? Maybe the Ides of March?
Ooh,
Beware the Ides of March?
No, I won't pick the Ides of March. But,
April is the cruelest month.
I'm not going to ask why. Is it the tax bill? Or,
you can consult T.S. Eliot.
You know, what was revealed yesterday is that the FAA won't issue the airworthiness directive by year end. And we really were using year end as a basis to set our schedule to return the MAX to service in March. So that will cause us to, you know, reevaluate our schedule. And what we've been doing as we've been incurring further delays is we've rolled the schedule a month. So we'll take a look at that. But I certainly don't expect us to be flying before March. Right now we have the MAX for sale March 6th.
Your birthday's March 12th, right?
You have a very good memory.
You have a good wife. She keeps up with that.
I have a great wife.
Yeah?
She's March 11th. That's a better date.
Yeah, she told me that.
Yeah.
But, and I'm March 18th. The Pisces people are truly the best.
There you go.
Don't you think so? Well,
So
speaking
we've
of...
got work to do once
Yeah.
they issue the AD, and we're allowing roughly 2 months for us to prepare the training, deliver the training, do some proving runs for ourselves with the airplanes without revenue passengers. And so we'll start gradually. We'll work with Boeing, work with the FAA. It's a physical process to unground the airplane and get them back into service. And we're not holding ourselves to any particular targeted must-do timeline. We just want to do what is safe and what's manageable. The operational quality right now is absolutely superb. We've got the fewest customer complaints that we've had in a decade. So back to, again, to my point, our customers are happy, and we just want to maintain that. It just establishes, in terms of our relationship with our customers, credibility. And there will be concerns about the airplane. And the first thing we need to assure them is you can trust us, we're credible, we know how to operate the airline, and we're here to provide a safe operation and take good care of you as our customer.
Well, now, United has said that it's not going to use as many MAXs as it had before, and that passengers, when they book, can opt out of the MAX, off the MAX. Will you do that?
Absolutely. 5% of our fleet is roughly the 34 airplanes. So we have 95% of our fleet aren't MAX aircraft right now. So absolutely, we'll be very lenient with our customers, and we'll get the MAX back in action. Things will be smooth. Hopefully, there are no nagging issues that make the media every day, which tends to happen. And 6 months get down the line and people forget about all that. We've done extensive polling with our customers. There's huge awareness of the MAX issue. I like the way Tom Nealon, our president, describes it. It's a bell curve. You've got some people this isn't an issue. You've got some people, I'll never fly it. And then you've got most people in the middle who just want to be informed and wait and see. But the vast majority of our customers, it's not an issue based on our polling.
Well, let's talk about your flight attendants. You had a soft deadline of November 1st to reach an agreement with them. I don't know if you reached that or not, but something that interested me, I think it was in the Dallas Morning News, is your attendants evidently want to sell food and sell credit cards. Is that true?
Well, our flight attendants are fantastic.
And I'm all for it. I love the Fritos I had flying up here.
I'd rather give them to you for free, though.
Okay. Oh, all right. Well, but why do they want to sell food? It looks like more work for them.
Well, I think, and the flight attendants haven't told me that, so I don't know if
they told the Dallas Morning News.
I don't know if it's more hearsay. I think if they see it as an opportunity for better customer service, perhaps a different form of compensation. I think everybody recognizes that there are opportunities for us to continue to evolve our in-flight product, and I'm not surprised to hear that they want to be a part of that.
But compensation for whom? The attendants or the customers?
I think what's customary is some kind of a commission type program based on how many credit cards you sign up. I don't know exactly how aggressive we want to be. We want our customers to have a very pleasant in-flight experience, and I don't know that we want people hawking goods and services. So all of that we'll have to think through very carefully, any more than people want, cell phone conversations on airplanes. So all that has to be thought through carefully. But in any event, a change like that would have to be negotiated. And it's not a high priority for the airline.
Well, it's probably reached you that Greta Thunberg is pushing flight shaming in Sweden. It's beginning to gain ground there. Scandinavian Air Service, the CEO said this is an existential threat to us. It'll come eventually to the U.S. Are you thinking about it? I think United said they were going to put up to $2 billion a year into developing biofuels or other alternative fuels. Are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I think, first of all, not just in terms of thinking about our business or public relations, I think it's a real issue, and I think it needs to be addressed. Aviation is a very small contributor to carbon emissions.
It's about 2.5%. Yeah.
I don't even think it's 2.5 at this point.
2 then.
But 2.5. So it's very modest. On the other hand, we would like for aviation to grow, and we would also want and need to do our part to try to minimize those emissions. And I think biofuels is the greatest opportunity we have next to modernizing the air traffic control system. So I think those are two meaningful efforts. But, it's a rounding error what airlines are doing right now. It doesn't move the needle. So we've got to have a substantial commitment and investment to alternative fuels with sourcing, refineries, Hopefully it plugs into existing pipeline systems for it to have a meaningful effect. But yes, it is absolutely an issue. It's absolutely something that we'll all need to work on together. In the meantime, we're doing what we control, which that's where the max becomes very important. It's 15% more fuel efficient, which means that much less carbon emissions. That's huge. We put winglets and scimitars on our airplanes to help with reducing drag and therefore reduces the fuel burn. We wash our engines. There's any number of things that are underway that have been very successful. I think over a 30-year time period, we've reduced the fuel consumption per unit in half. So the industry's done a lot to improve there. We can just do a lot more, but it's going to take a substantial commitment to biofuels. The issue being biofuels work today, but they're twice as expensive as what is available based on fossil fuels. And we just need the proper investment in scale to get that at parity.
Yes, and there's some talk perhaps of hybrid fuel and batteries. They'll work for short-haul flights, not long-haul because the batteries are so big. But one thing occurred to me, it seems to me that if all this happens, that the price of flying will go up. And I worry that this might damage the democratization the Southwest has brought to the air.
I think all those are important concerns. And what we ought to be smart enough to do is find a way where we can do this in a cost-effective way. What's available to us today is not, and it's not realistic. And even if you wanted to say, I'll be 100% biofuel, there's not enough supply.
You have to grow it, yeah.
So all of that will have to be committed to. I think, it's got the world's attention, and hopefully we'll work through it expeditiously and in a reasonable manner and do things that really make a difference. Transportation is necessary, and people want to have the freedom. And you're right, we're all about giving people the freedom to fly by providing them affordable fares. So I don't see any danger of flight shaming ruining our business in the United States anytime soon. But you see the way the energy companies are vilified. We would be foolish to sit idly by and not address this issue. So you can be sure we'll be doing what we can to move the ball down the field.
Well, let's not sit idly by up here and not hear from all of you. I have a friend who always says you need not disguise your comment as a question. So any testimonials to Southwest that you'd like to offer, I'm sure will be welcome. But I think you're going to field questions, David, is that right?
How is Hawaii working out?
Meeting your expectations?
We had some objectives for 2019, and what we have been able to do is to allow our leaders and our people to execute against their plan, despite the fact that we've had a little crisis here. And launching Hawaii was one of those. It was an ambitious effort for us to create the capability and then get it certified by the FAA for the extended overwater flying, and that was successfully done. And we launched in March. Our plan had been to use the 737-800, so those plans were unaffected by the max grounding, which was good. And the answer to your question is we're well ahead of our expectations. We have a very strong market position in California, and our Hawaii strategy is tied to serving those customers. The airplane does the mission beautifully from the West Coast to the islands, and so that's our target audience. That's where Californians like to vacation. So our theory is playing out. Andrew Watterson is our Chief Revenue Officer and leading the charge there, and has a little experience, by the way, in Hawaii because he formerly worked for Hawaiian Airlines. So he knows the market well. When you think about the cities that we're serving from California, we have 4 gateways. We'll soon we'll have 4. We're adding San Diego next year, and we have market share positions in those markets that encourage us that will capture a large part of the traffic. Oakland, San Jose, Sacramento, and then finally San Diego. And we're doing very well. Within the islands, initially we had not planned to fly inter-island. We have the airplane there awaiting its return flight. So, well, you know, it occurred to us that maybe we can do a little island hopping, and we've done extremely well with that. I think what, and Tom Nealon led our delegation, what we discovered early on is that Hawaiians or islanders were looking for some competition and lower fares and an alternative, and have really welcomed our service. They're not so much to the mainland as the inter-island, and so we're off to a great start there as well. But by next April, we'll have 38 daily departures between California and Hawaii, and we'll have 28 daily inter-island flights, which is, we wanted to be big, fast, and we're getting there, and we're getting there very successfully. So I'm delighted with that.
Of course, Texans like to go to Mexico, and you cancel Mexico, but I hear you might move in again. I think one of your people told me that before lunch.
Well, Lee, what we're doing right now is everything that we sell is in English and U.S. dollars. So eventually we'll want to add foreign currency capabilities in our back office as well as foreign language, and that will allow us to market better in foreign locations. That's the case in Canada, and it's also the case in Mexico City. Where we're having great success internationally is where we have U.S. citizens that are on the airplane going on vacation. And a lot of our round trip destinations are 95% are U.S., which you would guess, Cancun, and Caribbean islands and things like that. So Mexico City is much more of a business market and much more dependent upon having Mexicans fly on us. And one of these days we might be back there. So we still fly to Mexico. We're still we're in Cabo, Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, and have ambitions to add more cities beyond. And again, I'd love to be back in Mexico City one of these days.
Well, as we know, Lopez Obrador canceled the new airport in Mexico City, even though bonds had been sold and the ground had been turned. So you need an airport.
That's problematic in the sense that there's not much space at the end. And part of our logic was we felt that there was a risk with the airport. Some of the flight times, Andrew, I know that we had early on were very poor because it's in essence slot controlled. So that didn't help us in developing our business either. But yeah, for the time being, that's where they are. Eventually, if they want to grow their travel and tourism, they're going to have to face up to that challenge there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
With the cancellation of Newark, so what's the next step for people who want to fly from the Northeast out of this area?
Great question. Again, it sort of gets into our market strategy a little bit. We like to say that Southwest is in a category of one, that there's really not another airline that is like us. We don't hub and spoke. We have one class of service. There is no second class. There's just a lot of things that are different about us. You fly on us and you realize it's open seating, et cetera. We also don't believe we have to be all things to all people or serve all places. We want to be good at what we choose to do and do a really good job in serving customers in that way. New York for us is a destination. So we don't have enough presence here in flights to really capture a lot of customers who live here. So it's, when you think about the really strong positions we have in places like Chicago and Texas and St. Louis, Nashville, Florida, we want to be their favorite airline. We need to fly where they want to go, and they want to go to New York. So that's our orientation, as opposed to spending a lot of effort to try to win with the few flights that we have here to try to win customers over. In a scenario like I've described, we concluded it would be more efficient for us to serve the New York area at the airport that people want to go to. So when they think, I want to go to New York, they're not thinking Newark, New Jersey. No offense to Newark. That's where, and we have a lot fresher facilities there. We're spending a lot of money there, but we have great facilities, and we have more access in terms of daily departures and seats that we can provide in that market. So that's what we decided to do. But you are right, it won't necessarily help us in developing our New York market. We're going to have to do something that's much grander than what we are able to do right now. And the fact of the matter is, at Newark, we had a very small presence and no path to really grow it. And again, it was a hard sell for us to convince people to go to a different airport when they want to go to LaGuardia, if that makes sense to you. So it's, we'll see how things evolve over the years and how we might be able to grow in New York. In the meantime, out of 100 destinations that we serve, I'll bet you that we're the #1 airline in a third of those. And there's no other airline, back to the category 1, no other airline comes close to that. They might have a handful of markets that they dominate, but we have a very large presence in dozens of those, and there's dozens more that if we're not #1, we're a close #2. And New York is not one. We're not close to being the #1 airline in the area. I think we have about 11% of the market at LaGuardia, which is respectable, but won't come close to approaching the 2 market leaders. We have a huge presence in the Washington, D.C. metro area. We're #1 when you look at the 3 airports. Huge presence in the LA basin, #1 across 5 airports. #1 in Phoenix. We're not #1 in Houston, but it's not shocking given that we're in 1 of 2 airports. We are #1 in Denver, and that's in only a 13-year time period. So I think the company's done a good job of taking advantage of what opportunities became available, kind of sticking to our knitting, flying point to point, keeping fares low, don't charge bag fees, don't charge change fees, and there's liberty and justice for all. So.
Very good. Well, Gary, we know that in the month of November, you had an on-time rating of about 84.4%. That's very good, given all that you've been through. Thank you for letting me be here with you today, and keep love alive.
Thank you, Lee, for being here. Terrific job. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Well, Gary, thank you very much, and Lee, thank you very much. And to Gary's point, thank God she's not asking me questions. Well, on behalf of the Wings Club, we'd like to present you with this plaque, Gary. What is this, number 10? You probably can read this.
Oh, it's more than that, but who's counting?
So presented to Gary Kelly in grateful appreciation for your presentation at the Aviation Leader Series of the Wings Club Foundation, New York, December 2019.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you all very much. Thank you.